Hi, I'm Timothy Fricker, and I'm an attorney practicing law in Oakland, California. And I've been litigating cases for many years, particularly family law cases. And it's clear to me that many of my clients come to me with a great deal of fear and anxiety about these cases and about what's going to happen. So I'm putting together this video because I would like to share with them, or anyone else for that matter, that has fear and anxiety about what's happening in their life, a simple tool or a simple set of tools that have been freely shown to me, and I'd like to freely share it with others so that they can get the same relief that I've had over the years in applying these tools. Now, I'll be talking about these things collectively as the steps, and the reason I do that is because they are actually steps 10 and steps 11 of a 12th step program that I've been very fortunate in being shown how to do. Now, I can't really tell you what the 12th step program is because of reasons of anonymity, and also because the traditions of the particular 12th step program actually kind of preclude me from talking about them, so I can't really do that. But suffice it to say is that, as I said, it's step 10 and 11 of this 12 step program, and what these steps are in essence are: steps 10 is a process of writing out all your fears and resentments and seeing what happens, and followed by step 11, which is a process of meditation and see what happens. A couple of caveats though before I go talk a little bit more about these steps, and caveats because I'm an attorney, right? The first thing is that you must understand that I'm not suggesting that you adopt any spiritual or religious ideas in your life. I'm certainly not suggesting any sort of mental health program here. I'm not a therapist or a psychiatrist or anything like that. And needless to say, this is certainly not legal advice. I'm just trying to share with others what has been freely shared with me in the hope of giving people relief from existential fears and anxiety, and fears and anxieties that are brought on by specific situations. The 10th step is a process, as I said, is a process of writing out all your fears and resentments. And so how do we do this? Well, we do it organically. And what I mean by that is that you need a piece of paper and a pen, and from the brain through the shoulders and through the arm and down to the hand and the fingers and through the pen onto the paper, we write out in a form of stream of consciousness all the fears that are bothering us. And it's very important that we do this organically, because if you were to use a word processor or a computer of some type, you're almost certainly going to censor yourself or self-edit, and we don't want to do that. We need a stream of consciousness where freely the fears are revealed and written out, languaged out on a piece of paper, and then all the fears that lie beneath those fears and all the fears that lie beneath those fears, until we kind of run out of things to write about. Now, based on my experience, that can sometimes be 1 or 2 lines, or sometimes it can be an all-night session with an ocean of tears and a lot of pain. So what in fact do we do about these fears, and what exactly do we say? Let me give you some examples. A good example would be, say, I have fear that the judge is going to rule against me. Fear that the judge doesn't like me. Fear that my spouse is going to take all my money. Fear my spouse is going to take the kids. A kind of stream of consciousness where all these fears are connected, and you just write them out until you run out of things to say. And you'll notice that in the first sentence I said you write out I have fear, and then whatever it is, I fear the judge is going to rule against me. And then all the subsequent sentences, you just need the fear. The I have is unnecessary, it's a bit clumsy, it's almost grammatically redundant. So also it'll save your fingers falling off. So just on all subsequent sentences, just write the fear and then what it is. And you need to write out the fears until you run out of things to write about. Now, it's very important that we really understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about fear. I'm not talking about sort of cowardliness or timidness or being a scaredy cat. I don't think you'd be watching this video if that is what we were talking about. The fears aren't about a criticism of our characters. It's not about a weakness. What I mean by fear is a kind of concoction, a kind of delusion that we create in our minds as a result of the wreckage of the past, which is triggered by this intense situation that we find ourselves in. And so we create this delusion, and what the fear is as in the form of an acronym. It's the false evidence that appears real, or the false existence that appears real. It's complete delusion that is created and concocted in our minds, and we project it into the future and into the present, and it comes upon us, and it's very, very debilitating and very, very powerful. And it has to be removed, otherwise it's just intolerable. So that's the fear that I'm talking about. Again, it's not a cowardice, it's the concoction of a delusion, it's the of insanity, really, based on the wreckage of our past, that is triggered by this difficult experience, the very difficult situation that we're finding ourselves in. So what do we do about the resentments or the anger? But I call them resentments. Well, it's very similar to the fear, what we do with the fear. And what we're going to see is that the resentments are always, always, always premised on our fears. And we need to make that connection. It's very, very important that we see that all the anger we have and the resentments we have against other people, although it feels like it's the other people or the other places or the other things that are the problem, it's not really them that are the problem. The problem is our self-centered fear upon which these resentments, upon which our anger is always based. So what do? We write it out. We say, I am resentful at the judge because I have fear he or she is going to rule against me. It's my fear that's the problem. Or I'm resentful at my ex because I have fear he's going to take the kids. Again, it's not really the ex that's the problem. It's my fears about the ex that's the problem. I'm resentful at my ex because I think she's going to take... I'm resentful at my ex because I have fear she's going to take my money. Again, it's the fear that's the problem, not really the anger and the resentment. And we must see this connection, and we must connect our angers and anger and our resentments to these fears in order to have relief. So once we've finished writing out all the fears and resentments, we need to sign off. We need to complete the process. And the way we do that is we write out, thank you for revealing and removing these fears. They have to be revealed before they're removed, right? So thank you for revealing and removing these fears. I ask only for knowledge of your will for us and the power to carry that out, which is a petition really to the some sort of supernatural power of the universe that we probably don't believe in, right? Some of us will call it God or the divine goddess or Mother Nature or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But it's a petition to this mysterious power of the universe to help us get relief from these fears and resentments. Love, Tim, whatever your name is. So, to reiterate, it's thank you for revealing and removing these fears. I ask only for knowledge of your will for us and your power to carry that out. Love, Tim. So turning now to step 11. As I said before, step 11 is the meditation step. And I believe it's very important that you actually adopt and use Vedic meditation because Vedic meditation, based on my experience, is the only meditation there is that doesn't rely on the self-will to control the self-will. Vedic meditation is based on a premise that the mind is naturally very quiet and naturally very still, and it uses a mantra that has no intrinsic meaning, but it's just a sound to charm the mind back to that silence and back to that quietness, which is its natural state. The other meditation practices that I've ever been involved with, and or that I know about, all require, at least to a certain degree, the application of the self-will in order to shut down the self-will, which of course is a contradiction in terms. The other meditation practices, based on my understanding, assume that the mind is naturally cluttered and full of dissonance, that naturally it's like monkeys swinging in a tree, or like the rat on the treadmill in going round and round and round, or some people call it the board of directors, were forever chatting and arguing. And therefore they require the self-will to go in some form or fashion to quieten down all that activity. But based on my understanding of the steps and my experience with the steps, that is antithetical to the spirit of the steps, because the steps are about surrendering the self-will, and that would be impossible by the application of the self-will to do that. What I suggest you do is, if you find this process helpful, in other words, if you find that you actually get relief from the application of these steps, which is certainly my experience, I think you might find that in many, many ways your whole outlook upon life will change, and that you will have at your disposal a tool in which you can obtain relief from these existential fears that are bothering you. And I think if you apply these steps both in the morning, which I suggest you do when you wake up and you have your coffee, and at the end of the day when you're around dinner time, when you're having your dinner, both the application of the writing followed by the meditation, I think you'll find your life will change profoundly. And strap yourself in, because you're going to need it. Thanks for listening.